After 20 years of leadership development and 15 years of leadership coaching, I've discovered something that's going to piss a lot of people off in my industry. 90% of leadership programs are completely garbage. It's not because trainers don't care and can't design good training. It's because they're teaching you to be robots in a world that demands you to be a river. I'm Miles Threat. Thank you for joining me for your Legacy Leaders Lounge today. And I'm going to expose the 3 fatal flaws that are keeping you stuck in leadership mediocrity and show you what actually works when everything else fails. Stick around because what I'm about to share with you over the next 15 minutes could save you years of frustrations and thousands of dollars. Let me tell you about Sarah, who I cover in my book, The Adaptive Edge, and you can get your copy in the link below. She was a brilliant operations leader, went to the right schools, had a great education, completed every leadership program that her company offered. Yes, she was one of those high potential employees. But when COVID hit and some of her team went remote, and she froze. You know why? Nobody taught her how to adapt. And here's the first fatal flaw. Most leadership programs teach you static strategies for a dynamic world. They give you a playbook from 2010 or 2015, and guess what? It's 2025 and things have changed. But that playbook, they never changed it. They tell you just follow these 7 steps to effective leadership. But here's a reality check. Leadership isn't a recipe you follow. It's a river that you're going to navigate. And guess what? Rivers can change course. I've watched countless leaders crash and burn because they were using yesterday's map for today's terrain. Marketplace shifts, their team dynamics changed, technology evolved, but they kept using the same rigid approaches. Guess what? That's not leadership. That's leadership suicide. Fatal flaw number 2 is that one-size-fits-all delusion. In corporate America, they love this garbage. Send everyone through the same program. Make sure you check the box and call it leadership development. Been there, done that. But here's what they don't tell you. You're not leading robots. You're leading humans who are very complex, emotional, very unpredictable at times, with different motives, different communication styles, and very different triggers. You see, that introvert on your team needs different leadership than your extrovert. That 25-year-old needs a lot different guidance than that 55-year-old. And that high-performing team member needs a lot different coaching than that struggling team member right now. You see, that one-size-fits-all leadership, it's like trying to do surgery with a hammer. It might work occasionally, but you're going to do a lot of damage. And here's fatal flaw number 3, and this one really makes my blood boil right here. Information dumps without real-world application. You sit in a conference room for 8 hours, take notes on a sticky pad, do some role-play activities, and then nothing. You go back to your desk, and everything else is exactly the same. They gave you theories, they gave you concepts, they gave you frameworks, but they didn't give you the one thing you actually needed, the ability to adapt those concepts to your specific situation. It's like trying to teach someone the golf swing and give them videos of Tiger Woods' swing. Great inspiration, but zero practical application. And that's why 90% of leadership development fails. It's not built for the real world. Let me get real with you for a minute here. I spent the first 15 years of my career falling for every single one of these traps. I was that guy collecting certifications, got my master's degree, filling my wall with all kinds of credentials. But when the real challenges hit, it felt like a fraud. I remember one specific moment. I was managing an international team overseas in Thailand while I was doing nonprofit Christian missionary work. Done a lot of leadership training. Had what I thought was a lot of the right answers from my training. But the team that I'd stepped in to lead, they were falling apart. It was a shitstorm. Morale on the team was tanking. They didn't trust each other. Productivity was out the window. And I was trying to follow that leadership playbook perfectly. But then it hit me. That playbook was wrong. Not wrong for everyone, but wrong for my team at that moment. That failure taught me more about leadership than any program or training I'd ever attended. The breakthrough came from me at that moment when I started learning how to be a coach. And it wasn't based on more information. It was based on people challenging me in my thinking. See, that coaching training, it didn't give me another framework to memorize. It taught me how to read the river, how to assess what was actually happening, and not what I thought should be happening. That's when I realized that great leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the ability to adapt when the answers don't work. And here's the kicker. I spent 20 years doubting I was ready to write this book on leadership, The Adaptive Edge, Leading with Purpose into turbulent times. 20 years. You know why? Because I was waiting to figure it all out. But while I was writing The Adaptive Edge, I realized that I had the wrong mindset. You see, the best leaders aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who fail forward faster. They adapt, they adjust, they keep moving when everyone else gets stuck. And that's what separates real leaders from leadership pretenders. If traditional leadership development is broken, what actually works? Let me introduce you to something that's going to change how you think about leadership forever. It's called the adaptive model, and it's actually the opposite of everything you've been taught. Instead of rigid rules, it's a flexible framework. Instead of one size fit all, you get situation and specific strategies. And instead of theory, you get real world application. ADAPT stands for awareness, reading the situation accurately. Decision, choosing the right response. Adjust, modifying your approach based on feedback. Performance, taking action with intention. Trust, building confidence through consistency. This is another acronym for you to memorize. It's a thinking system that works in any situation. Here's how you figure out what to do. See, traditional leadership gives you a script. Adaptive leadership teaches you to improvise. Traditional leadership prepares you for yesterday's problems. Adaptive leadership prepares you for problems that don't even exist yet. Which leader do you want to be? Let me give you two examples of what this looks like in action. I was working with a manufacturing supervisor who was struggling with a multi-generational team, and their traditional approach was treat everybody the same. The adaptive approach, we mapped out the communication preferences and motivational drives of each generation. Then we created a flexible strategy for each group. The result is their team productivity increased by 23% over 90 days. Another client, a nonprofit director dealing with volunteer burnout, traditional solution was to try to motivate them more. The adaptive solution, we discovered the real issue wasn't unclear expectation and misaligned values. We just restructured the volunteer experience around purpose alignment. The result was volunteer retention increased by 40%. And that's the power of adaptive thinking. Now, if you're in the operation, manufacturing, and supply chain space, you know that leadership challenges hit differently in our world. At a major manufacturing company that I worked with, I designed an onboarding program for over 400 new employees. I've seen what happens when you apply cookie cutter leadership to real world operations, and it doesn't work. You got these young 22-year-olds working alongside 30-year-old veterans. You got safety protocols, production targets, quality standards, and the human emotions all colliding together at one time. Traditional leadership training tells you to communicate clearly and set expectations. Great advice, but completely useless without your ability to adapt your communication style to each person and situation. See, in operations, leadership isn't theoretical. It's really life or death. Safety depends on it. Quality depends on it. People's livelihood depends on it. And that's why operational leaders need adaptive skills. Your environment can change in seconds. Equipment breaks down. People call out. Orders change. Regulations change. And you can't lead with a rigid playbook when your reality is constantly shifting. You need to be like water, taking the shape of the container that you're in, but never losing your essential nature. That's adaptive leadership. Look, if you're tired of leadership development that doesn't actually develop you, you're sick of programs that give you theory and no real-world application, if you want to learn how to adapt instead of just react, the Adaptive Live Challenge starts Monday, July the 21st. This isn't another webinar where you just sit and listen. This is 5 days of live one-on-one coaching where we work through your specific leadership challenges or bottlenecks using the ADAPT framework. 25 total spots available. The application is in the link below. And here's what makes this different. I'm not going to give you generic advice. We're going to take your actual situation, your real challenge, and build adaptive solutions that work for you. Because the world doesn't need more leadership that just follows a script. It needs leaders who can write new ones when the old ones stop working. Applications are open. Don't wait. These slots will fill up fast. I'm Miles Threat. Thank you for joining me for Legacy Leaders Lounge today, and I'll see you in the challenge.